Joining us now to discuss this further is Dr. Stephen Johnson, Chancellor at Western Governors University of Texas, and Jacob Freire, President of the Texas Association of Community Colleges. Thanks to both of you for being on the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I know that SB 25 has been a multi-year effort. Jacob, I'll start with you. How helpful will this be in cutting costs in education, making sure that students are able to more easily transfer credits?
So, Karina, I think Senate Bill 25 is indeed watershed legislation. It has great potential across the state. At the individual family unit level, having that opportunity for them to understand that they can start a community college and end a university with a baccalaureate degree program, very influential. But in Texas, about 5 years ago, we embraced a new blueprint for higher education called 60 by 30 Tex. SB 25 will be fundamental to the success of 60 by 30 Tex. Couple of stats. We enroll at community colleges across the 50 colleges, 736,000 students. The majority of those students are enrolled in general academic courses with the intention of transferring to university. At this stage, about 70% of university graduates have some kind of community college coursework in their transcript. 35% of those university graduates have at least 30 community college credits. So there's a lot of good groundwork already in place. SB 25 has allowed us to realize the potential of those transfers and of those students going forward.
Dr. Johnson, just in terms of the urgency of this bill and, speaking to how to make this more of a seamless process, why it hasn't been in the past, and how you think this will help.
So, representing WG University, which is a national university, Western Governors University, we certainly see that transfer is an issue across the entire country. It's not unique to Texas. Certainly, SB 25, I think, is a really good step in the right direction. Certainly, we've seen over the years in Texas, the struggle that students have to make sure that they know that the pathways they're on are seamless. I think the other concern, particularly on transfer, is credit loss, is making sure that the credits that come across don't simply apply as an elective, but actually apply towards a degree plan. That also speaks to affordability. We're very interested in partnering with our community college partners to make sure that we see those seamless pathways, not only so students can start here and end there, but also do it in an affordable way.
Why do you think that the transfer process hasn't been so seamless, just in terms of making sure these credits transfer to the universities?
I think some of that has to do with just the nature of the type of institutions that we have in Texas. So we have a richness of diversity among institutions. We have 37 public general academic institutions. We have WGU Texas. We have 42 private independent institutions, and we have 50 public community college districts, and we have 1,200 ISDs. So we have a vast and big and rich diversity of institutions. That's part of the complexity in terms of that. The other part of it is we have just now a greater scale of students. There are now 1.6 million students enrolled in Texas higher education. So at that scale, any kind of reform does sort of take time and effort to make sure that we get it right. SB 25 hits at the appropriate levers. Beginning with the course sequence requirements that requires all institutions to have a very specific course sequence recommendation for every degree program, for an advisor, for a family sitting at home with their child. That's going to be very important, so they understand exactly what courses they need to take and what sequence of courses to get to every degree program.
I don't know which one of you could speak to this better, maybe both, but just this has got to save some money then in the long term. I mean, if they're not, wasting some of these credits that aren't going to transfer.
Absolutely. Well, and we released a poll in the first part of January called the 101 Higher Ed Poll of Texas, and leading the issue of concerns for Texans was affordability and student debt. I would point to transfer and the lack of seamlessness in transfer as a driver of more cost and eventually more student loan debt if you're needing to take additional hours beyond those that you transfer in. I think to Jacob's point, though, I think you look at a system like Texas that is so robust and so many different types of institutions. That's wonderful for students. They have access to all these variety, but it becomes difficult to make sure that those are aligned in a proper way. And I think SB 25 is a good step in the direction to align that.
A lot of good communication coordination in this.
Yeah,
absolutely, and it was from the very beginning of the conversation on SB 25, and it will continue through this process. The bill would stand up an advisory committee of 2 institutions and 4 institutions working alongside with the Higher Education Coordinating Board to continue to have these kinds of collaborative conversations. We believe the collaboration leads not just to innovation, but frankly, good solutions. And I think SB 25 is a good example of that. And so I think this is an important, good start towards that. And so long as the collaborative spirit continues in the years ahead, I think we're going to be in a much better place.
I want to touch on a couple of other things, but
Sure.
with regards to WGU
Yeah.
and specifically with financial aid and what kind of came out of this legislative session,
yeah.
what are the successes there? How will this help?
So we were really excited this session that for the first time with the passage of SB 1757, WGU Texas students are now eligible for some state financial aid. There are, excuse me, loan repayment programs aimed particularly at workforce, so teachers, nursing, that sort of thing. It's really exciting because affordability, as I said in our poll, we found that that's critical for Texans. I think though that, when you think about financial aid, it is another all of the above strategy. And I think we saw good gains in other sectors of higher education in Texas, whether they're Texas grants at the public universities or TEG for the private institutions. I think we see a commitment on the part of the legislature to make sure that we maintain that affordability.
And lastly, just in terms of better serving underserved populations, I mean, you guys are talking a lot about this and how that could help with SB 25, but independently partnering together, talk a little bit about the initiatives that are going on now to have better access and making college more accessible.
Sure. I mean, I think from my perspective, I'm working through a process this calendar year to sign agreements with all 50 of the community colleges that the Jacobs organization represents. We recently signed one with Austin Community College just earlier this week. The goal is to have an overall partnership with those institutions, but really spend the next year doing a deep dive on how we can align those programs. To your question about underserved, we recognize that our community college partners, their student enrollment looks like what the state is going to look like in 20 or 30 years. So underserved is both those of low income, people of color, but also those in the rural parts of the state. And certainly community college partners serve all of those for us. And so we're working very closely with Jacob and all of his institutions to make sure we align and have these partnership agreements.
Jacob, I'll give you the final word.
Absolutely.
On all of this.
So our colleges serve, again, 736,000 students in 249 of the 250 counties across the state. The majority of the students are low-income students. We represent 70% of freshmen and sophomores in higher education in Texas come to community colleges. The majority of the students enroll part-time. Part-time students are underserved in this state. And in order for us to achieve the 60 by 30 workforce, we need to be able to address all students, including part-time students. And then I know WGU Texas and us are in partnership. We also need to make sure that our rural students are met.
Yeah.
There are still 4 million Texans that live in rural communities, and it's our respective institutions that I think are at the forefront of making sure that rural Texans are not left behind.
Right.
Steps in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Thank you to both of you for being on the program. We'll get you back in soon.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.